Hey everybody, I'm Holly, aka the ScientoloGeek, and I want to welcome you to the 24th episode of Going Over the Data series. We're going to cover two policy letters today, one relating to the why is God, and one relating to auditing the data series. So if a student has a problem with the data series, this is the stuff you need to run. I saw something that I wanted to mention before we get started on Mark Headley's channel, Blown for Good, which is also the name of his book. Mark Headley escaped the gold base on a motorcycle, almost got run off the road. And he set himself a little challenge, which I would like to now set for myself, even though I know I'm not going to make it. So there's a thing in Scientology called the birthday game, which is all about getting your statistics up and having the highest ratio of statistics. You don't need to make the most money. You just need to have the biggest percent change in your org. So what he did was he wanted to beat Scientology's subscriber count by March 13th, which is usually the time of the birthday game event. So I want to do the same thing. I know I'm not going to beat Scientology's subscriber count by then, but I want to get it up as high as possible. So please share this with your friends, family, anyone you want to share this with about Scientology. If you want people to know why this is so crazy, if you want people to really be able to dive in and fully understand why this is insane, spread this out. Spread the word. It'd be greatly appreciated. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, notification bell, and comment. So we'll help you get those numbers up because of the algorithm. I've got one last thing. If you want access to this, any of the volumes, the flag orders, base orders, whatever, any of the documentation that I have on the Google Drive folder, you can go to the server link in the description, or if you want to email me directly, you can go to ScientoloGeek@gmail.com. That will also be in the description below. Feel free to hit me up with a valid Gmail address, as I am sending these out through email invites and not through link sharing. Let's get started. Let's take a look at the HCO policy letter of the 15th of March, 1971, issue 2, revised on the 21st of September, 1981. This is called Data Series Auditing and references two other documents, a bulletin called HC Outpoint Plus Point Lists, which I'll check out at the end of the video, and a policy letter called Only SSO Can Tip.
Whenever a student cannot grasp or retain the data of the data series policy letters, he must be audited on the HC Outpoint Plus Point lists.
So if a student doesn't understand something or can't grasp it, it's not because the material's garbage, it's because the student has a problem. The student needs to be audited.
The reason for this is that he himself has outpoints, and it's necessary to audit him on this subject.
Way to make assumptions, Hubbard, with no evidence to back that up.
When the student has outpoints, it's been found that he's a terrible time grasping or retaining the data series material.
But it doesn't mean that every bad grasp or retaining of the data series material means that the student has outpoints. Correlation does not equal causation. Correlation, this in case, is not the only possible reason why someone may not be grasping or retaining the data series.
This does not mean the student is in any way crazy, it just means he's illogical and has outpoints in his thinking. This will reflect as well in his other studies. So handling this is a vital action. At the discretion of the SSO and CS, the student may also be programmed for Method 1 word clearing, the PRD,
which I assume is Purification Rundown, but I'm possibly wrong,
the study green form, or any of the various student repairs, new aerodynamics, etc. He can also be given superpower when released. An individual program is worked out for the student using the available text so that he can master the data series.
Alright, we're going to go right to the policy letter of the 31st of January, 1972, called the Why is God?
When beings operate mainly on illogics, they're unable to conceive of valid reasons for things or to see that effects are directly caused by things they themselves can control. The inability to observe and find an actual usable why is the downfall of beings and activities. This is factually the why of people not finding whys and using them. The prevalence of historical man's use of fate, kismet or fatalism, superstition, fortune-telling, astrology, and mysticism confirms this. Having forgotten to keep seed grain for the spring, the farmer starves the following year, and when asked why he's starving, says it's the gods, that he has sinned or that he failed to make sacrifice.
How did he forget that he didn't keep seed grain?
In short, unable to think, he says the why is God.
I don't think anyone would make those explanations when the obvious answer is they didn't have a stash of seed grade.
This condition does not just affect primitives or backward people. All through the most modern organizations, you can find the why is God in other forms. By believing that it's the fault of other divisions or departments, a staff member does not look into his own scene. The reason I cannot load the lumber is because the personnel section will not find and hire people. It does not seem to occur to this fellow he's using a why which he can't control, so it's not a why for his area.
It doesn't mean that the area that's having a problem, it doesn't mean that it's their fault. Not all the time. It could be their fault, it might not be their fault. But to solely place the blame on that specific division that is having the issue causes a lot of problems in and of itself with running a Scientology organization. Because if your division is bad due to the fault of another division, you're not taught that it's the other division. You're taught that it's your fault and you need to figure out how to fix it.
It does not move the existing to the ideal scene, thus it is not a why for him. Yet he'll use it and go on nattering about it, and the lumber never gets loaded. The real why for him more likely would be, I have no right to hire day laborers. I must obtain this right before my area breaks down totally, or my department posts are too specialized. I need to operate on all hands actions on peak loads.
I don't know anyone who, if they didn't have enough people in their division, who would go and try to gain HR capabilities. That's not what I do. I feel like we don't have enough people at my job for my position, because there's many people that do it. But I don't feel like I have to go out and get qualifications to hire people myself. I mean, this could work for a small locally owned business, maybe, but this would not work for a corporate entity.
A course supervisor who says, I haven't got any students because ethics keeps them for weeks and cramming for months, is using the why is God. As he cannot control ethics or cramming from his post, his why is illogical. The real why is probably, I'm not mustering all of my students daily and keeping them on course. If they're ordered to ethics or cramming, they must be right here studying, except for the actual minutes spent in ethics and cramming. But this does not just apply on small activities, it applies to whole nations. The reason we Germans cannot advance is because England is against us. This wrong why has killed many tens of millions in 2 world wars. Intelligence organizations are often almost dedicated to the why is over there. It seldom is. Most staffs of orgs, when pay is poor, are completely addicted to over-there-ness. In one org, the finance banking officer was continuously hammered to give more money by the people who were responsible for making the money, and yet who are not raising a finger to do so. An actual survey of 4 org staffs showed that only 2% were aware that their pay depended upon the org gross income.
When did you do this survey? Because I have a feeling that you possibly made this up. At first I read it as he asked 4 people, not 4 orgs worth of staff.
Thus, survival is very closely tied to logic. If one finds he's sinking into apathy over his inability to get his job done, it's certain that he's operating on self-conceived wrong whys in areas that he cannot ever hope to control. And in living any life, most major points of decline can be traced to the person's operating on whys that do not allow him to improve his own scene. The Greek cut open the guts of birds to find the why. He called this divination or augury. Don't look now, but that civilization's long been dead. Just as anyone will be whose illogic leads him to over-there-ness to find his whys. Strength and power in the individual consists of being logical enough to find whys he can use to advance his existing scene toward the ideal scene. The why is not God. It lies with you and your ability to be logical. God helps those who help themselves.
Before we end it off today, I did want to take a look at that HCO bulletin that was mentioned in here. So HC Outpoint plus point lists. So we got Outpoint lists. Always finish off with plus points. So you got omitted facts, terminals, data. So this is omitted things. Missing things, sequence of particles, locations, object spaces, and forms, twisted ideas, dropped out time, condensed time, rush time, invented time, false time, incorrect time. These feel like these could all be different categories of outpoints that would be included in the list. Like, it feels like they're all different. Endless time. Okay. Endless time. That's unexpected. people possibly just assuming that they have all the time in the world to do something. Waiting time, added time, unexpected time. Delusion, hallucinations, false facts, false terminals, false being. I mean, any SP is considered a false terminal. Fixed ideas, altered importance, decreased importance, overvalued, too important, too insignificant, wrong location, unbelievable idea, action, event, circumstance, being. Conflicting data, contrary facts, false source, from wrong person, from wrong place. Yeah, if it didn't come from Hubbard, it was probably a wrong person. Added, inapplicable. We're going to learn about those later. Data assumed to be identical, not identical. We're going to go through all that. That's a new set of outpoints. Plus point, knowing something is right. Datum's correct. Things in the proper order. Known time, correct time. Basically things that make something quote-unquote logical. None of these really have to do with logic, I don't think. They just have to do with data. I mean, it doesn't help you constructing like logical arguments or figuring out logical explanations for things. It comes up with Hubbard's idea of logic, at least, which I think is completely illogical. So we've got believable locations, feeling of rightness. That's just subjective. True source, data in agreement, facts align. Possible. What happens when you have data that's not in agreement? That means one of them's false, one of them's true. So then the question is, you got to figure out which one's false, but then that's false purpose run. No, false data stripping. My bad. That's a different process. Data assumed to be similar. Basically being correct and going through normal plus points. So we covered data series auditing, so learning how to audit the data series. And we also covered the why is God. Now, I remember Aaron Smith-Levin mentioning something when it came to statistical management and why working in a Scientology organization isn't a living nightmare. I will put the link to the video in the description, by the way. But he describes the why is God concept. And he talks about consulting, I think it was Lululemon. And he said that they were accounting for rainy days. And he's like, that's illogical. Well, at first when he was doing consulting work, he's like, based on his training from Hubbard, he's like, that's completely stupid. Why would you guys blame the rain for this? But if it's raining out, people aren't going to go to the stores. People are going to stay home. The stores aren't going to make money. So they were keeping track of their rainy days to know when they lost money, which is actually a logical thing to do. All I have to say is, like if you like the video, dislike if you don't. I don't really care. Comment with your feedback or questions, good, bad, or sideways. And subscribe to be kept up to date on future content. Let's get that birthday game challenge going. I know I'm not going to beat you, Mark Headley, but I just would love to get up as high as possible. I'll talk to all of you later. See ya.